In this lecture, we're going to cover Chapter 5, Renaissance Music. The Renaissance. So the Renaissance is a period that comes after the Middle Ages. The term Renaissance means rebirth, and it's a period of intellectual and artistic flowering in Italy, France, and England. Basically, it's a rebirth in learning, it's a rebirth in the arts. And it starts in Italy, and then it grows throughout the period and goes to France, England, and the rest of Europe. The majority of the ideals of the Renaissance comes out of the what we call the classical world, and that's the art and the literature and the ideas that are based in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, okay, or what we call classicism. In addition, this period is guided by the ideals of humanism, and that's a term that we want to be familiar with. Humanism is the emphasis on the human worth or the individual, creativity. It's the capacity to shape society. And now we do see the appreciation of the individual. Other things that come out in the Renaissance, well, we see art for aesthetical value, okay? We see art for pleasure, people start to create music for enjoyment, okay? It's not all associated with the Catholic Church. We see the age of exploration. And that's a big thing in the Renaissance. We have, Christopher Columbus, one of the big, important explorers of the age. We have the discovery of the printing press. That's a very, very important invention, since now we can mass produce books, we can mass produce literature, and we can we can send out all of our ideas across a wide area. Later on, music is able to get produced through the printing press as well. We will see the Protestant Reformation and then the Counter-Reformation come out in the Renaissance. And then in addition, with music, we have the expressive power of music in the close relationship with music and text. And that's going to be a big part of this chapter. Okay, we'll look at Italian madrigals, and we'll also look at or English madrigals, as well as in the music of Josquin and so forth. Four important Renaissance artists: we have Michelangelo, we have Leonardo, Donatello, and Raphael. Music in the Renaissance. A lot of the music of the Renaissance takes its inspiration from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Musicians turn to the Greek philosophers and dramatists for their inspiration. They're looking at the art, they're looking at the aesthetic of their architecture and their literature. We don't have music from that period, but we do know that music played a vital role in the life of ancient Greece and ancient Romans. So we do see an emphasis on the expressive power of music. Okay, the expressive power of music comes through you adding text to music. Okay, we have a close relationship between the music and the text. Now, as soon as we add lyrics or we add text to music, we're changing that relationship. Okay, so we add a narrative when we add text because we're singing about something. Okay, and the music will function to support the text. Okay, so we have a new alliance between text and music, with the accompanying music underscored and enhancing that meaning of the text. Thus, we get a greater range of emotional expression. Okay, and this is probably one of the more important things of the Renaissance music. We're going to see a lot of madrigals come out, which are basically text setting of songs, and a lot of other sacred music where they're setting texts as well. So the text and music in the Renaissance period is really important. Humanism. So humanism is going to be the emphasis on personal achievement, intellectual independence, discovery. Many of you may have heard of the idea of a Renaissance man, and people like Leonardo or Michelangelo, they were the ideal of a Renaissance man. People that were trying to be the best that they could be, and they were, and especially in multiple fields. I could be a great musician and a great artist. I could be a great painter and a great literary writer. Okay, so these were kind of the ideals that were embraced in the Renaissance. The culture rejoiced in the human form, okay? And we see this through art. There are plenty, it is the emphasis on the nude model. And we see that in artwork. We see Michelangelo's David. It's one of the like the pinnacles of art at the time. Another genre that comes out in painting is the idea of a portrait, depicting worldly individuals kind of enjoying their good life. And we see this come out in the Renaissance period as well. Josquin des Prez. So Josquin is probably one of the greatest composers that's coming out of the Renaissance. Okay, he's often compared with Michelangelo. He works in Italy. He also works in France throughout his life, but he also works in the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican as well. So he's working directly. His music's being played for like the Pope. So that's a prestigious position. Okay. Now his personality, he was temperamental. And he's not going to be the only composer that we look at that, is temperamental, but we recognize as a musical genius. We'll see other composers down the road that have, a challenging personality. But he excelled. He excelled in writing music. He excels in writing both sacred music and secular music. Okay. One of the works that we'll look at is a motet. And a motet, it's a sacred polyphonic vocal composition. Okay. Most of these polyphonic compositions are written for choir, okay? And they're sacred pieces, so they're going to be written in the Latin text. Remember, Latin's the music of the Catholic Church. It's the language of the Catholic Church. So if you want to have a piece performed in the Catholic Church, it's going to be Latin. So what Josquin does, though, he has a dramatic musical setting of this text. He takes the text and he tries to take it to another level by having the music bring out or enhance idioms or ideas that are presented in the text. Okay. Now, not all of the text is based on, all of the song material is based on Gregorian chants. But these pieces were intended to be used for religious services. Josquin des Prez, the Ave Maria. So the piece we're going to look at by Josquin is Ave Maria. It's a motet praising the Virgin Mary. Now, the text and the music is used to persuade the listener, kind of draw the listener in, okay? And the piece is written for your standard four-voice choir, soprano, alto, tenor, and bass. The difference between this piece and maybe pieces probably before in the Middle Ages is all voices are going to be of equal importance, okay? We have balance and we have symmetry. And he does this by maybe having, he'll switch up each voice, maybe we'll have the melody in each voice, okay? He'll also switch up the texture throughout this piece. Maybe the soprano and alto voices will be singing in duets, and the tenor and basses will be singing in duets, and then there'll be a section of homophony, okay? So Josquin's using musical texture for contrast throughout the entire piece. Another thing that happens in this piece is we use this idea of imitative polyphony, okay? And imitative polyphony basically means one, like the soprano line will sing the melody or a melody or a melodic fragment, and that melodic fragment will be duplicated by the alto, and then maybe by the tenor, and then maybe by the bass. We're going to see that in this work. And then another term that we want to know is a cappella. What is a cappella? Now, a cappella is basically unaccompanied singing. It could be a solo voice, a cappella. It could be a choir. As long as there's no piano, no pipe organ, no harpsichord, as long as there's no accompaniment, a piece that is called a cappella. Okay? Let's listen to Josquin's motet, the Ave Maria. I have an example here for you. Josquin de Perez, the Ave Maria motet. So continuing talking about the motet, we talked about this idea of imitation. And if we look here, all voices present each a two-word phrase. Okay, so the soprano is going to sing Ave Maria, and then while she's singing Ave Maria, the alto is going to come in and sing that same identical line. And then the tenor is going to sing that same exact identical line. And then the bass is going to imitate it, singing the identical phrase as well, just in their own ranges. Okay. So I'm going to play the example in a second. The text translates, Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum virgo senia, meaning Hail Mary, full of grace. The Lord be with you, serene Virgin. Let's go listen to this excerpt. Josquin, Ave Maria, continued. So, continuing talking about the motet. Another way that Josquin adds dynamic elements to the motet is he'll have duets sparse throughout the motet. So in this example, we can see the soprano and alto are singing this duet, okay? And then it's imitated by the bass and tenor right afterwards, okay? So the text translation is this: Hail to you whose conception with solemn rejoicing fills heaven and earth with new joy. So let's listen to this. It's going to start off with the soprano and alto singing this melodic phrase, and then it's going to shift over, and then it's going to be imitated in the basses. Continuing talking about the Ave Maria motet, there's two other things that Josquin incorporates in this piece that are really dynamic and new for the era. Okay, the first is he's using chordal, or we call homophonic writing. Okay, so the first example we'll listen to is this homophonic texture. And he's also going to be changing the meter from duple to triple, okay? And we'll feel that rhythmic change. So in the example, it's the translation is, Hail true virginity, immaculate chastity, whose purification was to be our purgation. Let's listen. It's a beautiful section. In the final section of the motet, we do see homophonic writing, and they call it strict chordal writing. Okay, and one of the main reasons why Josquin chose us to do this is for the clear presentation of the text. Okay, the text is very, very important, and this is the last, probably very most important part of the motet. Okay, we're talking about the Mother of God, and we're wrapping everything up. So Jos kind of really wants to make this text clear to the listener. Okay, the text is O Mater Dei, Memento Mei, Amen. Mother of God, be mindful of me, Amen. Let's listen. Giovanni Palestrina. So continuing talking about the Counter-Reformation, we talk about Palestrina. In Palestrina, he comes out in towards the later Renaissance period, and he writes a lot of sacred music, and a lot of this music he does kind of conforms to these ideals that are presented in the Counter-Reformation, especially the piece, his Pope Marcellus Mass. Okay. And we have two versions of it on canvas. We have the Kyrie and the Agnus Dei portion that we want to listen to. Now, both of these examples, though, they employ simple counterpoint. They have exceptional clarity of the text. It's very, very apparent. The text is still in Latin, but the text is very, very clear to the listener. Okay, and then we also have the clarity of expression through music. That's very, very apparent. So when I listen to these pieces, the pieces in themselves are really, really gorgeous pieces. There's a lot of ornate counterpoint, and there's a lot of dissonance that's get resolved. They are very, very beautiful pieces. Dance music. So we're going to look at two dance pieces that are typical of the Renaissance. We'll look at the Pavane and the Galard. Before we talk about that, though, I want to talk about the printing press. So in the 1400s, mid 1400s, Gutenberg, he invents this printing press. And probably one of the most important inventions of the Renaissance, because now we can print out one book and print out hundreds of them, and we can send them out throughout Europe. Okay, the first book he prints is the Bible. Okay, and you can mass produce these pieces with these books. The first printed music happens about 40 years later in Venice, and in the 1500s, we start to see the emergence of music publication. Okay, so we can write out books of music for dance. We can write out books of songs. We can write out madrigals, print them, publish them, and then send them out throughout Europe. And it's a very, very important because it helps us get our ideas out and disseminates our ideas across Europe. So one of the main things with dance music is we're going to start to see a lot of these dance music collections being published. So the two pieces we're going to listen to, they're dance pieces. Okay, the Pavane is a slow gliding dance in duple measure. And normally, as a popular dance, when it was danced to, the couples would hold hands as they dance. Let's listen to the piece. The Galard is a contrasting piece. It's a much faster piece. It's in triple meter, okay? And again, most of these pieces, like the Pavane and the Galard, they're paired together, okay? Let's listen to the Galard. So let's go back though now and listen to each of these entire pieces. I have two examples on Canvas. And I have examples with them actually dancing as well. So I'll make sure you guys check those out. The Madrigal. So a madrigal is it's a piece for solo voices. Okay, normally 4 or 5 parts. Often these pieces are performed by choirs now. Okay, but men and women they could sing these together. This is again secular music. This is not sacred music. Okay, a lot of these pieces were performed by amateur musicians. Sitting on a weekend, they're getting together, they're singing these pieces for enjoyment. Okay. They were very, very popular during this era. Okay, more than 40,000 of these madrigals were printed, and then a lot of them exist today. Okay, the text of these madrigals is they're usually love poems. Okay, about love, and they're usually sung in the vernacular. Now, the vernacular is a term that I think we've talked about before, and that means the language of the people. So, if it's an Italian madrigal, it's going to be sung in Italian. Okay, if it's an English madrigal, it's going to be sung in England. Okay. One thing that makes these madrigals unique is they employ a term called word painting. Okay, it's vivid imagery of the text is enhanced by musical setting. So lots of times composers will use compositional devices to enhance the music and try to portray what the text is saying. So if you're singing about going up to God or ascending to heaven, the melody lines may be going in an upward direction. If you're maybe singing about breaking up with a woman or getting your heart broken, well the harmonies may shift and become more melancholy, or you might have more dissonance. And these were like compositional devices that composers would intentionally put into these madrigals to really enhance that the text. So this concludes our discussion on Renaissance music. In this discussion, remember, we listened to a motet by Josquin. We looked at the Pope Marcellus Mass by Palestrina, and we also looked at an English madrigal by Thomas Wells. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you in the next chapter.